deemed illegal by the church. William Marshall, knowing this, took the money from the individuals, left them completely penniless, and met with a couple of other knights that he was supposed to meet up with later. Now, William Marshall was exacting justice as he saw fit, as a knight, because it was within his power to do so. Remember, he had authority from God to do what he wanted to do. That was the idea that was on people's minds. Well, when William Marshall met up with a couple of other knights, he bought them drinks with that money, he bought them food, he paid for everything that night. And the other two knights, knowing that William Marshall did not have a lot of money, knowing he was a man of little means, or rather a knight of little means, they asked him where he got this money from. And he told them the story about taking the money from the monk and his lady. These two knights actually told William, "Are you kidding me? You need to go chase down those individuals, take their clothing, take everything they have, and leave them completely desolate." And William Marshall said, "No, I've done enough. I'm going to leave it as it is." They went back to help Henry the Younger. So here we have this example of William Marshall, who is basically one out of a handful of knights who is really regarded as upholding chivalry as it should be. However, this idea of exacting the law with their own ability, basically their autonomous behavior, their self-governing behavior, knights were able to do what they wanted to do. So with this behavior, did it truly make them chivalrous as we think they were? Well, from what we're seeing, obviously not. Now, you can look at this a few different ways. Sure, a knight learned how to talk to ladies. He learned how to talk in court. Knights talked with knights, or rather with kings, with dukes and earls, with people in high prestigious places. So they needed to learn how to have that refined behavior. Because if anybody here was to go and meet the President of the United States, you could be sure that you would get a very long course in how to behave, right? Because you're meeting somebody in a very high position, you need to be very well behaved. Well, knights learned this proper behavior. But at the same token, they learned how to solve any bloody conflict, or rather any conflict with their swords that were in blood. They learned how to solve any dispute with their poleaxes with violence. And so, does a refined behavior and a completely free ability to go and wage literal mortal combat with anybody truly make anybody completely refined in all of their behavior? Obviously not. Obviously there's some links loose in the chain link fence. So as we move on, we're going to talk a little bit about the 11th century of England and France. And the reason that we're going to talk about this particular time period is because it's going to show us exactly what type of behavior knights were getting away with. Now, if I always pick on you. Yeah, come here. All right, now I'm going to do something that's going to shock all of y'all a little bit, but it's important to the idea. Now, this individual, he's stupid. Now, you laugh, but right now he's probably angry at me. He's probably like, "Are you kidding me? What?" You know, he's smiling because he just doesn't want to swing that sword at my head right now. But if two knights were to step on each other's toes, or basically call another knight's honor into question, it would be like calling another person stupid. They would get upset. Nowadays we laugh at it a lot because we see television, and I'm not exactly being too serious. But if we were serious and I called him stupid, he would get angry at me. Y'all would certainly be a part of the conflict. Y'all would see what's going on. And so we would start fighting. And it didn't matter if we were in a town, if we were in somebody's farmland, it didn't matter where we were. We would start fighting, literally. I would call my buddies, because I had a lot of friends that were knights. He would call his buddies, because he had a lot of friends that were knights, and they would fight. And they would cause this disruptive violence. Because certainly, if anybody here, who here walks to school? Does anybody walk to school? Everybody rides the bus.
Well, school.
You can go up some stairs. Where do y'all walk to the most? Anybody?
My room.
Yeah. Your mom's? Okay, well, say you were walking to the library. Say you were on your way to the library from your house. Okay? Or say you were literally walking to school because the bus broke down. And all of a sudden, in the middle of you walking to school, you saw a bunch of guys with guns shooting at each other and lobbing grenades like we see over in the Middle East and these other countries, right? You see that on the news a million times. Well, certainly you couldn't live day to day very easily. You couldn't go outside and play because you knew that you going outside and playing would ultimately probably end up with you getting caught in the line of fire and dying. Well, this disruption of normal day-to-day individuals existed because of the knights. The knights caused these problems, so much to the fact that the King of England in the 11th century, King Henry, he actually passed laws that made it illegal for knights to fight against each other. He started enacting laws upon the tournaments, telling them that they could only fight for certain reasons, and other reasons they could not fight. We start getting into what violence from knights is allowable and what violence from knights is not allowable. And so from this point, thanks for that. I didn't really mean it, by the way. He's a very, very good individual. All those individuals who you saw earlier putting on the weapons demonstrations, they had 4 classes for a total of 2 hours each class. So they trained for 8 hours and they were able to do those things. So they really do show a good amount of In France, however, in the 11th century, the King Philip, he did not restrict his knights in any way. He did not tell his knights, oh, you have to behave, you cannot fight wars over this issue. He allowed his knights to do whatever they wanted to do. So if I got in a fight with somebody else, and we were fighting near your farm, where you were growing food and going to sell and make money off of, and me and my knights needed food because we were out, well, we would go steal food from your farm. We wouldn't give you money for it. We would just take it. Because knights had the ability, they had the authority to do these things. So, in England, the people of England were very upset by all of these situations that were going on. However, the knights, in England, people were happy that these laws were being put upon the knights, because that meant that the people could live day to day a little bit better, a little bit more safer. However, the knights were very unhappy, because now the knights were restricted. Now the knights could not do what they wanted to do so much. If all of your parents gave you 1 pound of whatever candy you wanted every single night, and you got to eat it every single night, you'd certainly be happy, wouldn't you? Right? I would certainly be happy for sure. Well, if all of a sudden they started saying, well, you can only have 1 piece of candy, you'd be upset, right? Because they're taking away what you once could have, what you got used to having. Well, that's how the knights felt as well. They got used to having this freedom. And so now they didn't have so much freedom anymore. So the knights started to rebel. I apologize about that. Yeah, my wife loves South Park, so. Sorry about that, I'll turn this off right here. Okay, so, how did I get everywhere to that? So, knights in England were very upset. So they started fighting against the king. They started fighting in these civil wars because they were unhappy with what the king was telling them they could no longer do. So, what the knights in France, what the king of France did, is they came into England to take over England. Remember, the king of France was Holy Roman Emperor. Did you have questions? So, an emperor was able to rule over several countries. A king only ruled over 1 country. So,